is covering actually everything that we have covered from the beginning of the lesson, of our first lesson up until the end of chapter number 2, which is up to lesson number 12. So before we start with this revision, I would like to give you a short overview of the briefing of your summative assessment. So you're going to be writing the summative assessment in June. The date and time, I just want to quickly confirm if there is a date and time for this assessment which has already been set so that I can inform you of that date and time. So you will be writing your summative assessment on the 5th of July. So you will be writing on the 5th of July from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock at room 1. And the one for next week, you will be writing at room 1 as well from 10 to 1 o'clock, which is your formative assessment. It is next week, Wednesday. Whereas the summative, it's in June, Thursday, 10 to 1 o'clock. So you will be required to do the following in your summative assessment: demonstrate your understanding and internalization of principles relating to business finance, which in particular you'll be required to demonstrate your understanding as well as your knowledge of interpreting and analyzing financial statement. You will also be required to demonstrate your overall understanding of financial mathematics terms, as well as your understanding of how inventory management should be accounted for in a business environment, as well as being able to understand the impact of time value of money on the investment that one can actually do within a business environment as well on their personal life. So, which means that your summative assessment will be covering chapter 8. So, we'll be covering chapter 3 to chapter 8 of your prescribed textbook. And the test will be out of 100, which means you will be required to achieve a 50% um, pass rate or achieve a 50% pass mark for you to be found competent in the assessment. So one most important thing is that you need to achieve a 50% pass rate on the formative as well as the summative for you to be found competent in this module on both of them. You will be tested on the following concept: drafting and understanding of the income statement, reading financial statement. Are you able to read and interpret financial statement? You'll also be required to demonstrate the ability to analyze and interpret financial statement results by calculating ratios. You'll also be required to draft a cash budget during your assessment, which will be for a company in terms of collecting revenue from the clients that they've sold their goods on credit, as well as for those that they have bought goods on credit for. So how are they going to schedule their payments to pay those creditors? And then you'll also be required to demonstrate understanding of inventory management control, as well as how to manage inventory and their overhead cost. You'll also be required to demonstrate or calculate economic order quantity for the entire items of inventory to indicate how much of goods should be ordered every time when we place an order. And this also covered the reorder point to say that if we have got an economic order quantity, when should this economic order quantity be reordered? So we'll be taking a look at the reorder point. How do you calculate reorder point? And then you also have to demonstrate the understanding of cost behavior that you do have knowledge of in terms of identifying that we have got different types of cost within a business. We have got variable cost and we've got fixed cost. How do they differ? And which one can we classify as a fixed cost? Which one can you classify as a variable cost? If you are manufacturing a product and you are going to sell it, then how do you classify that this cost belongs to and manufacturing cost? This one belongs to manufacturing overhead. So we're also going to learn about that distinction as well between product and period cost. Which one is a period cost? Which one is a product cost? And lastly, demonstrating the ability to solve financial mathematics time value of money questions or scenarios. So this is where someone invests money in the business account or in a bank account, and then they want to earn interest or earn certain amount at the end of a specified period. Then you will actually have to calculate how much interest will that person have to receive for them to be able to achieve their goal. So that's what you are going to be assessed on. So these are the learning outcomes of the summative assessment. And then in terms of the assessment criteria, is going to be as follows. So section A will be testing your understanding of financial statement, which is going to be basic question in terms of financial statement. Things such as what is your gross profit, those kind of things. And then line items of the income statements, and then interpreting financial results. You'll be required to calculate ratios, explain what the ratios mean, cash management. You'll be required to draft a cash budget where you'll be asked to perform a schedule of receipts as well as schedule of creditors, controlling inventory, calculating the economic order quantity, and costing. You'll be required to demonstrate understanding of cost behavior. Which type of cost are flexible, which one are variable, which one are fixed, which one should we include when calculating the price of the product, which one should we never include when calculating the price of the product. So this is on the main assessment. So the main assessment, which is going to be on the 5th of June, will have section A up to section E, all to give us a total of 100. Whereas the supplementary exam will only test you on the following topic. Interpreting financial results will actually be 30 marks, cash budget 30 marks, financial planning 25 marks, and then controlling inventory 15 marks with a total mark of 100. So this is what you will come across in the supplementary exam if you did not make it on the main exam during the June period. And the test rule still applies that students who arrive more than 30 minutes late will not be allowed to complete the assessment. And the assessment will have, you'll have one attempt to redeem yourself if you fail the assessment, which is going to be the supplementary exam. The duration of the test is going to be 3 hours, and you will not be allowed extra time. Once in the test venue, you will also not be allowed to leave it until 1 hour 15 minutes have passed. And then you will also not to be allowed to re-enter the test venue once you submitted and leave the venue. The test is an open book test. So over here, it's an open book test. You are allowed to use your textbook in the text venue, which will help you or guide you towards what you are being required to perform. No question will be there from the textbook, or nothing will be similar. Nothing much will be straight from the textbook, but there will be similar questions that will help you guide you towards answering some of the questions that are in the assessment. Calculators may be used, and you will not be allowed to borrow calculators. No cell phones are allowed. The question have does not have multiple question choice where you have to choose between question one and question two. All the questions that are going to be asked, you will have to answer all the question. Student might only write with a black or a blue pen. If you write with a pencil, you will not receive mark, whether your amounts are all correct. And that is the only 2% you require to achieve a pass mark. So this means that you will not be allowed those particular marks. So please note and highlight this section. No other pen beside a blue or a black pen. Tipex and pencil may not be used. However, if you find yourself that you wrote something that is incorrect, you are allowed to just put in a dash like this and write the answer in the second given space. If the space is full, go to the work area that is provided, indicate that you are writing an answer for 2.4 or 5.4, and then continue to write your answer. And also, where you crash the answer like this, you can therefore write in refer to rough work so that when I'm marking, I can be able to know that you did answer this, but your work is within the rough work. So do not use Tipex. If you use a pencil at first, make sure that you erase the pencil before submitting, because if there are any correct mark written in pencil, you won't receive any of those marks. All answers must be written, answers written in pencil and Tipex will not be marked. And you also need to write neatly. So please make sure that you try to write things that are much better and visible or readable so that we do not get to have any issues when marking your paper. Okay, starting with the feedback of with our test, I'm just going to try and see if I can quickly open the test and then we can go through it together.
I might need to sit there.
Sorry? Okay, I'm just gonna quickly check the chat section. Please note that my other device is not working, so I'll just come back and forth on the chat section once we are continuing with the lesson. So yes, the class is being recorded and the recording will be uploaded by later or first thing early Monday. So I'm going to switch my screen from the one that is on the other side and share a different screen. Please just confirm if you can all see my screen by giving me thumbs up. Okay, thank you very much. So with regard to the mock test that you wrote on the 1st of April, so the first question, so these questions are similar to what you'll be tested on. However, there are some that are not going to be tested in the current assessment, but they'll also be tested in the supplementary exam. So when you don't see the question in the supplementary exam, do not in the main exam, do not think that that is the end of it. That means that the question is was preparing you for the supplementary exam in case you write the supplementary. So I've covered both so that I do not have any issues. But however, the first two questions as only accept the third question. The third question will not be assessed. However, I'm just assessing your knowledge in terms of understanding numbers. But the first two questions and the rest of the other question, they are similar to what you'll be tested on the main examination. So please make sure that you understand all these terminologies that we are going to be explaining. First question, it says that write the following numbers down in English word. For example, 2,326. So we are given the following number. So in this number, we are required to write this number in words. So which means that we need to identify the place value of each and every number. So this number over here we're sitting with thousand, over here we're sitting with million, over here we're sitting with billions. So this means that this number can be read as 2,435,800,000. So this means that what you were required to actually complete over here is to go and say 2 billion and you put a comma to indicate that, okay, we're saying now 2 billion, and then you write 435 million and 800,000. So this was supposed to be your answer. So which means that you need to break down the number in a way that it's still readable. If you do not put a comma, most of the time your answer will still be correct, but you will be saying that the person have to read this without taking a break. So this means that the comma allows the person to take a break by saying 2,435,800,000. Whereas the second one is going to be in thousand format and then million format. So this is in tens million format. So this means that it's going to be 67 million, comma, and then you write 891,000 and 204. So you can also put a comma over here between thousand, which means that the person will read the amount as follow: 67,891,204. So do not use the and over here. So just say 891,204. So that's how we are supposed to rate this number. So during the assessment, I did notice that some of those who completed the assessment, they did make a minor mistake here and there by not also including the comma in the assessment. So please make sure that you put a comma to indicate a breathing point that this is how the number should be read. The second one says round 1,426. Sorry, not 2 million. So we've got thousand, we've got million, we've got billion. So this is 2,146,822,326 rands off to the nearest 10 million place. So 10 million place, we have got 4 over here, which is in our 10 million place. So we go and say 2 billion, 100 million, and then we look at our 10th million value, which is 44 million. And then we'll look at the value after that, which is 6, or the value behind that, which is 6. And because it is above 5, this means that is going to be 2,150, 2,150 million. So this is how the final figure should look like after rounding it off. So you look for the place value first of 10 million, and then you look at the number after the place value, which is 6. Therefore, you identify that it's above 5, so it's going to change 4 to 5, and therefore you're going to have 2,150. Any question on this part? Any questions? So in absence of question, we'll then move to number 3. After number 3, I'm going to be asking you guys to participate and then give me answers. So on this one, on number 3, if the first one says that, it says insert a symbol, which the symbol can either be greater than, less than, or equal to between the numbers to make a statement. 2 trillion is 5 billion. So is 2 5 billion. So we have to either put greater than, less than, or equals to. So normally 2 trillion is actually bigger than your 5 billion. And then minus 75 to minus 24, we can then go and say that minus 755 is less than 200 minus 244, because now we are further away from the positive number. So therefore, this is lesser than minus 247. Whereas on this one, it says 23% compared to 2 over 9. So which means that here you'll have to use your calculator to identify how much is 23%. So 23% will normally be 0.23. However, 2 out of 9, when you use your calculator, you're going to say 2 divided by 9, which then going to give you 0.22. So this means that 23% is greater than 2 over 9. And then on the last one, it says that 121 compared to minus 211. So which one is greater, which one is lesser, or is it equals to? So in this case, we're going to have 121 being greater than negative number because the positive number are actually greater. So this then concludes the first three questions of our lesson. This then brings us now to question number 4. Define the following. So in your assessment, you are going to be seeing something similar to this a lot, where you'll be required to define a specific account. And then you'll also be required either to fill in the missing information where you fill in the word of what that the statement actually described, or you will actually be matching a specific you'll be matching the definition as well as the to the word that represent that definition. So let's start with owner's equity. What is your understanding of what owner's equity is?
The
Um,
total amount of money that a business owner invests in a business.
okay, 100%. Anyone would like to add on top of that? There is still more that you can still add, or another definition that you can try to redefine it. If you were to redefine it, what would you say, Lihodi?
The owner's money before it makes profit.
Sorry?
The business owner's money before it makes profit. The total amount of money a business owner invests in a business.
100%. Kamukelo, you want to attempt? Reformer Paloi, do you want to attempt?
So I'm just paging through my book. I'll answer it just now.
Or just give me your own understanding.
So basically, owner's equity could be amounts like your capital. So money that is invested into the money that belongs to the company, like capital. So, how do I put it? Money that's not assets as of yet.
Okay, it is of assets though, because the money is sitting in the business account of the company. So that one we can rule it out to say that when the owner invests money into the business, the money goes straight to the business account of the company. Therefore, it is an asset. Though we're gonna create an account called capital, indicating how much the owner invested in the company. So to summarize what owner's equity is, owner's equity, we can say that this is a share of interest in the business by the owner. So meaning that it does not only relate to the capital he invested. This also means that also the profit that the company make, he have got shares in that you also have got share of interest in the profit that the business make. So this means that it accounts for everything, the capital as well as the profits. I see, Hamukele, you wrote that owner's equity represents ownership interest in the business. Yes, it is 100% correct. So it
But
represents the money.
I don't understand. How is it profit, but yet it hasn't generated profit? Like the money is the owner's, like totally. It hasn't made any profit yet.
If the business haven't make profit, therefore owner's equity will represent the amount of capital invested by the owner. But if the company have made profit, therefore the owner's equity will therefore be the amount invested plus the profit that the company make. Because when you register a company which is a profit company or a private company, you are registering it for a purpose of making profit. So the moment it makes profit, the profit belongs to the owner of the business. So therefore, that is part of his share of interest or return over his investment in the business. So hence we then go and say that owner's equity represent the ownership interest in the business, as Kamogelo mentioned in the comments. So it covers the whole scope of what owner's equity could be in the business, not just only the capital, but also you have under Lehodi, you also have to account for the fact that the business might be already existing. So you need to define it in a way that it does not limit or does not have limit in terms of what owner's equity could be. So you also need to cover the scope of where the business have actually made money or it's actually operating. Okay, are we together on that one? Thumbs up if we're together. Okay, thank you very much for the thumbs up. This then brings us now to income. What can we define income as in a business? Welcome. Would you like to help? Skula? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correct. I'm not sure if it's Shula or Skula. You can assist on that. Can you help in terms of defining income? What is an income? What do we mean by saying income in a business? Answer. Kamogelo, you wanna try? Okay, I understand that Kamogelo maybe is in a place where she can be able to use a microphone since she is using the chat section. Let's hear Paloi.
Would it be money coming into the business?
Money can be coming in the business, but it can still not be an income. So, for example, if the owner invested money into the business, we will classify that as an income.
No, that would be
So,
called capital.
so you'll have to rephrase.
Um,
Yes, Likhodi?
I'd say the revenue of the business, the money generated from sales or products or services.
100%. So let's hear what Khamukelo say on the comment. Income is the money or other form of compensation that an individual business receive in exchange for providing goods and services or labor. So both Likodi and Khamukelo are correct, as well as Palo, you were partially correct, though we cannot fully go and say that it is the money that the business is receiving, because the business can also receive money that it is not income. For example, the business can still go and make a loan. When they receive money from the bank as a loan, that loan is not what? Income. So income represent all the money generated by the business through rendering services and selling goods, also including all money made by the business by offering other product and service, or offering other services unrelated to their business activity. This include rental income. For example, we are not in a business of estate or doing property, but however, we do have a certain space in our apartment that we can lend to another building to occupy. Therefore, that can also form part of our income. So therefore, when you define income, make sure that you define it in a way that it is also inclusive of that particular what, for that particular kind of transaction, to say that income is the money generated from the business activity for either rendering services or goods, but can also be money generated from other services, including such as including rental, where the company rent out the business or rent out equipments. So meaning that you have already so covered for that specific section. So that money, when we receive it, is going to be classified as income. And then what about expenses? Let's start at Muso. Also,
operational
what is
costs.
your definition for expense? I can't hear you. I
I'd
think
say
something.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Or I was gonna say operational costs of a business, deductions that has to be made to keep the business functional.
Okay, and Baloy,
Expenses would be money that money that is used to, like a loan, for example, would be an expense in a business.
can you repeat that?
I was saying that a loan, for example, could be an expense in a business. So money that is taken out of the business to like pay for certain things to make the business functional.
Okay, the part of the money that is taken uh, to pay for business operation to make it functional, that statement will actually receive a partial mark. Although the first one of the loan, it's not 100% accurate or 100% correct. So, in terms of defining expenses, on the other side, Ramukela did mention that it is a cost incurred by the business to generate revenue. So, those are the expenses, or to achieve a goal or maintain operation. So, expenses are all the money that the business incurred to run its daily operation, not only through to generate revenue, but to for its daily operation. So its daily operation will also include what? Generating revenue. So these are all the money incurred by the business to run the daily operation of the business. So this means that cost of selling the product becomes a what? Expense. Fuel for delivery, expense. So those are part of costs that we generate to actually run the business, which is to operate the business. Cost incurred by the company to operate the business. Any cost incurred. So when we're taking a look at loan, you're going to be paying interest on the loan. So the interest that you're paying on the loan, they are not part of business operation. Hence, they do not fall under operating what? Expenses. They are treated after the operating income. And then when it comes to interest or money received from investment, let's say, for example, you invested a certain amount of money elsewhere and you receive interest from that money. When you receive those interest or when you receive those income from that investment, you're not receiving it as part of business operation. Therefore, it will never be classified as what? As operating income, but it will be classified after the operating income because it's not part from the business operation. So during the lesson, I once mentioned that expenses are all type of cost that you incurred for operation of the business. And any cost that you incur that is not related to operation will be treated after the operating profit. For example, interest income will be after operating expenses. Interest expense will be after operating income. Taxation will be after operating income because they are non-business related operation cost or income. Are we together on that part? So in terms of assessment wise, I would say that make sure that you have got your understanding of this terminology under after that page 26 where you get your accounting statements. After that, it did explain what our current assets are, what owner's equity is. Familiarize yourself with those terminology because you're going to be assessed on those specific terminologies. Though some few might actually be different, we might be assessing you as well on account itself. For example, what is actually drawings? So I think the next part was to ask you of what is drawings. So having understanding of what drawing is, I might give you the word drawings as well as the definition for drawings and the word for income expense as well as the definition, but I ask you to match the two. So those are something that you might actually come across in the assessment. So you need to make sure that you understand the definition of these words. Over here, we then have the trial balance, which was extracted from BAA trial balance. This is the Boston Advertising Agency. They've got the following information from the trial balance. You have been asked to do the following, which you are also going to be required to do this in your assessment, which says round off the trading inventory to the nearest 10,000. So trading inventory is this amount over here, so which is 46,500. And therefore, when you round this to the nearest 10,000, the value under the 10,000 place value is 4. So this means that we look at, nearest 1,000. So the nearest 1,000 value is actually 6. So therefore, the value before that is 5. And 5 is actually above 4 or it's equivalent to 5. So therefore, it's going to add an extra value into this amount. So this means that this amount will therefore be now regarded as or rounded off as 47,000. And then the other one says round off the mortgage to the nearest 10,000. So over the mortgage, you will look for the value that is within the 10,000 place value, which is in this case 7. And therefore, we look at the number before 7, which is actually 0. So this means that 7 will remain the same as it is. So therefore, when rounding it off, it's going to say 570,000. And then on the third one says calculate the total current assets. So I'm going to ask you one by one to give me your total figures. So I'm giving you 30 seconds to calculate that for me. I'm gonna scroll up. So calculate the total current assets for me and give me the final figure at the end of on the chart section. Everyone, please calculate your current asset and give me the final figure on the chart section. Okay, I'm waiting for your final figures on the chat section. Once you have them, just post them on the chat section. Okay, in the next minutes, by 10 to, I would like to get the feedback from you guys. I'm gonna give you extra 2 minutes just to finish off calculating. If you are done and you wanna use the microphone, you can raise your hand and then unmute yourself, or I'll ask you to unmute and then you can give us your answer. So Kamogelo said 48,370. What about the rest of you guys? Likhudi, Paloi, and welcome. What are your figures? Total current assets. Okay, guys, your time is up. Please, Likhudi, do you have your final figure with you?
So I got 48,370.
Also got the same amount.
Yes, sir.
Paloi as well as, sorry, welcome as well as Likhudi. What is your final figure? So if I am correct, you guys are saying 48,370, which means that you add trading inventory and PT cash only. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So why didn't you add the bank overdraft? I just want to hear your view in terms of why didn't you add the bank overdraft?
Isn't bank overdraft a current liability?
Yes, 100%. But then again, what about this account over here? What do we classify this account as?
Debitors control, can it be a non-current asset?
Yes, it is a current asset. So, Musolihodi, your amount is incorrect. The amount presented there is actually a very large amount of sum. So let's start first by defining what is current assets. Does anyone understand what is a current asset? Because you're going to get this question in the assessment.
A current asset is amounts that are likely turned into cash by the business.
Partially correct. So you are correct, but partially correct. Anyone would like to add on? So your current assets represent all the resources or all the types of assets that the company will own and convert into cash within a period of 12 months. So there are a number of definitions to define what current assets are. Some will say that current assets represent all um, resources with future economic benefit for the company that will be turned into cash within the period of 12 months. So this include your debtors, which you have already sold your goods to them on credit. So this means that your debtor becomes now what? An assets to you, and you'll have to collect that money within what? A 12 months period. And then you're gonna also have got your trading inventory, which you're gonna convert by selling it. Petty cash, which represent the amount you require for you to be able to change for customers. And then others include bank account, but only if it is favorable bank balance. Therefore, it's going to indicate that we do have certain amount of cash within the year, and we can use that cash anytime, anywhere. So therefore, it also forms part of your current assets because it's already in its liquid format or liquid state, which is actually cash. So therefore, it also then form part of your current assets. So that's how you might able to define what current asset is and be able to identify from the statement provided which one of these can you actually convert into cash within a year. Trading inventory, petty cash is already in cash format. Equipment we cannot convert, but debtors control we can convert because these are customers that owes us and that have bought from us, and therefore they will have to pay us within a period of a year. And then just to see, can you list the accounts that will be classified as non-current assets? Just give me the accounts that will be classified as non-current assets.
Vehicles, as well, land and buildings,
Okay,
and buildings as well. Yeah, I think that's it.
vehicle and land and building. Let's hear what Kamukelo said. Land and building and equipment. What about you, Muso? As well as welcome. What are your views? So on the previous one of current assets, your total is supposed to be um, your trading inventory plus PT cash plus debtors control because these are people who have to pay you within a period of 12 months. So therefore, they have to form part of your current assets. So those were calculated this amount. Therefore, you were partially correct, but you were not completely correct because you ignored or you forgot to include your debtors control. But then you mentioned land and building and vehicle, and then we also have got Kamukhelo mentioning the same, and then we've got Welcome also mentioning land and building. Kamukhelo then also added equipment. So all of you are correct. However, for Welcome, it is partially because she does not include the sorry, is it vehicle or equipment? She did not include equipment. And remember, when the company buys equipment, they plan to use these for over a period of a year, normally 3 years going upwards. So therefore, you need to also um, factor that in that those equipment will therefore be used for a period of more than 12 months. Therefore, they will be classified as what? As your non-current assets. So part of the assessment will actually either require you to draft or to list current assets based on the financial statement or based on the trial balance provided. Some of them will actually ask you to calculate the total value of current assets or current liabilities or non-current liabilities. And then we've got the following session. This is the session that most of you actually perform a little bit bad on for those that wrote. Uh, and the question number 8 is requiring you to complete the statement of profit and loss and other comprehensive income for XYZ Limited. So you're given the following format, which the format is already indicating to you what you just need to do. So on the format of the income statement, you will have your sales and then followed by cost of sales, gross profit, operating income, gross operating income, operating expenses, operating profits, interest expense, profit before interest expense, profit before tax, and then taxation, which is 20%, and then net profit. So on this specific section over here, when it comes to sale, I'm just going to show you the solution of this activity. I think it's on page, just need to quickly check, page 386. So I took this from the textbook. So it just indicated to me that majority of you do not actually open the book until the test comes. So therefore, you will be surprised if you find something 100% similar in your assessment and still fail it, whereas you did have the textbook all along. So please make sure that you do open up your textbook so that you do not find yourself in such situations. So let's start with sales. So under sales, previously I did mention that you're gonna say your sales value minus discount allowed minus sales return. So for you to be able to calculate the sales, you're going to say sales minus discount allowed minus what we call this minus your sales return. So your sales return represent all the items that were returned by the customer, which decreases the sale. Discount represent the discount that you give to customer instead of them paying the full price. Therefore, it's going to decrease your what? Your total sales. And then the cost of sales will therefore be the cost of sales value that is already represented minus discount received. If you receive a discount when buying from your supplier, it will then reduce your cost of sales because now you no longer incurred the full cost, but you incurred half the cost. Hence, you're going to have a cost of sales being subtracted by the discount received. And then this means that over this side on your income statement, you're then going to put in your values over here of the income. And then for cost of sales, you put the value in brackets. And then you calculate the gross profit value. So this is all in page 386. It is going to give you the exact solution of this activity, which I just extracted from your book. Operating income. Under operating income, only include income that are arising from business operation. This include services rendered. This also include commission. From commission, this then we can then also have you can then have your rental income if you're renting out the space that you use for your business operation to another company. This is your building that you operate in, but however, you do not fully occupy it, you rent it out. So because that building is part of your rental, your operating premises, therefore rental income will therefore form part of your operating income. So those are other income that you can include there. If the company decide to sell its asset, let's say we sell our equipment because we want to buy a new one. So the income received on selling that equipment will also form part of other operating income. Um, Sorry about this, guys. Someone is calling and it's disrupting on my side. So back to our lesson. So I was explaining all the information or all the accounts that you need to identify that fits within the operating income. Once you have got those accounts, you list them over here on this page given, and then you put the accounts amount here, the amount here. You add this amount, and then you put the total over here under operating income. And then you're gonna then go and say your gross profit plus these two accounts, we add them together to give us the value for the gross operating profit. Because now we have got income from sales and income from other um, operating equipment. So therefore, we then have a total of gross operating income. This then brings us to now operating expenses. So operating expenses, these are all expenses we incurred trying to run the business. not necessarily trying to only generate revenue, but trying to run the business. So when it comes to this to the trial balance, I once mentioned a trick for you guys to be able to understand this, that everything on this side, which is the credit side, represent the income. Every side thing that is here on the nominal section represent your expenses. However, not all of the expenses that are listed here will be classified as your operating expenses. For example, interest on loan cannot be classified as an operating expense because we're incurring this from the money that we borrowed, which is not part of the business operation. Telephone, we include it under operating expense. Wages, we include it. Rent, we include it. Interest on overdraft, we exclude it because it's not part of business operation. Interest paid, we also do not include it. Rates and taxes, we include it. Uh, Insurance, we include it. Bank charges, we include them because it's part of business transaction that we normally do, that we incur such charges. Fuel charges, we include them. Office refreshment, we include them. Stationery, we're gonna include them. Repair and maintenance, we're gonna include them. And sales return, we're gonna include. So no sales return will be included. However, I did notice that most of you who attempted did not include credit losses. So credit losses relates to when we sell something to customer on credit and they become a debtor to us. And while they become a debtor, they do not pay us our money that we have given, that we allowed them to borrow us by actually giving them the goods on credit. So this means that when they do not pay us, we then have what we call credit loss. So this credit loss write off the amount that the client owe us. But if the clients pay us back, even though we return it off, we then have what we call credit loss recovery. So this means that on the income, under other operating income, we're gonna have what? Credit loss recovery. But then if we do not manage to recover anything, we're then gonna have credit loss as an expense. Any question on this part? Any questions? Okay, thank you for the thumbs up. If there are no questions, then please make sure that you refer this to page 386, which will then give you an overview or example of how to prepare an income statement. And then the most important section that also accounts to over 20%. It is over 20% in your assessment. So you need to master this specific section. So here it says that Mr. Ram, which is a sole proprietor, has the following transaction in his book of accounts for the year. On January 1st, he invested 20,000 as capital. On January 2nd, purchased goods on credit from Das and Company for 2,000. January 4, bought plant and machinery for 8,000 on cash. Purchased goods for 4,000 on cash, and then sold goods for 6,000 on cash. Then paid Das and Co 1,000. Received 300 from Mr. Y, who is a debtor. Paid salary of 6,000, receive interest of 5,000, paid monthly wage of 3,000. So the question becomes, you are required to show the effect of the accounting equation and also indicate which account should be debited and credited. Let's start with the first one, purchase goods on credit from Das and Co. Company. Who would like to attempt this question? Anyone would like to attempt this question? Which account do we debit? Which account do we credit? Anyone? Remember the three questions that we did on our first lesson. Analyze the transaction, identify what happened. Second, um, identify which accounts have been affected, classify the accounts, and then the last is to identify the effect, which is the increase or decrease. Yes, Paloi?
It increases on the debit side, so plus 2,000.
So which account are we debiting, which account are we crediting?
Crediting the liabilities, the account, yeah, the liabilities.
And which account are we said credit.
Yes.
We are crediting what?
Liabilities. So it would be a plus plus the amount and liabilities.
And then which other account?
And minus on owner's equity.
No?
Minus on owner's equity.
Uh, which account on owner's equity is affected?
Bank.
So when you write this, this is how you will have to do. Purchase goods on credit from the Dad and Co company. So we are purchasing goods, and goods is known as what? What is the other word for goods? So another word for good is inventory, which is already an assets. And then since we're saying on credit, you were partially correct by saying liability, but liability is an element. So we need an account that will have to be credited or that was affected. So in this case, the account is actually what we call account payables, because now we'll be owing the creditor who is Da and Co for giving us inventory worth 2,000. And therefore, the one that is increasing is our assets, which is increasing by the worth of inventory that we bought. And also the liability will increase because now we are buying extra on credit. So therefore, here it's going to be plus 2,000, again plus 2,000, and then here over here we then have zero. So our owner's equity is not affected. So any question? Any question on that part? I see Kamukhela on the chat section got it right. She did mention inventory. However, she did not mention whether we're debiting the account or creating the amount, creating the account. So which means that here I asked you about a revised equation. So a revised equation will go and say that the previous equation had 20,000 here. Now we are adding 20,000 on the asset. So therefore we're going to have 22,000. And then on the liability, we're going to have a positive 22,000. Whereas on the liability, so on the owner's equity, we still have 20,000. So when you say the assets, which is this, is equal to liability plus equity, which is then going to be 2,000 plus 20,000. Therefore, the two balance. Therefore, our accounting equation balance. This then brings us now to 4 point or 0.4.1.19. So which represent the date to say that on 2019, on the 4th of January, we bought a plant and machinery for cash worth 8,000. So which two accounts are affected? Okay, let's hear this one. Which two accounts are affected? Bought plant and machinery for cash 8,000. Which account do we debit? Which account do we credit? Anyone? I see Kamukelo is typing. So owner's equity is not an account, it is an element, so we need a specific account. Which account are affected by the transaction? Anyone? Okay, I'm just going to explain everything. Baloy says sales. We're buying a plant and machinery for cash, 8,000. So there won't be any sales. Sales is only when we are receiving money from selling our product. Let's wait for Kamufelo since she is typing, and then after that, I will explain um, this account based on similar process. So Kamukelo is asking if is it bank. Yes, it is bank. Bank is affected because we are using cash. Remember in class I said that the moment you see the word cash, it means that your bank account is affected. So this means that we are buying a plant and machinery. So this means that the first account, since we are saying for cash, this means that bank account will be affected. Then we then have to identify the other account. So since we're buying plant and machinery, then I'm gonna say plant and machinery. So both of these are asset and therefore they will affect the asset side. So therefore, which one do we debit, which one do we credit? So we're gonna debit the asset which we are buying because its value is increasing, or if we already have that asset. So our plant and machinery value is gonna increase, so we debit plant and machinery, whereas we're gonna credit the bank, indicating that money is going out of the business because it decreased on the credit side. And then which means that on the same asset, we're gonna say plus minus what? 8,000. And therefore over here we're gonna have zero, zero. So over here, we're going to have plus minus 8,000. Any question on this part? Any questions? Okay, no questions. Let's keep next to the next part. So this means that on the revised, because here it's saying plus minus 8,000, so this means that this will cancel each other and we will still be remaining with 22,000, 2,000, as well as 20,000. So this is what a revised equation will look like. However, going forward, I'm not going to be doing the revised equation. I'm just going to be looking in terms of answering the question. So I'll still leave this to you guys to work on it while you're doing your practice. And if you come across any challenges, please feel free to email me any challenges that you have. I will be able to assist you. On the 8th of January, it says that he purchased goods for cash, 4,000. So the moment you purchase something for cash, bank account is affected. Then what did he purchase for cash? Goods. So this means that inventory is affected, which is already an asset. So which one is increasing? Inventory is increasing, our bank account is decreasing. So we're going to have plus or minus what? 4,000 over here. And then this side, 0, 0. Any questions? Okay, no questions. And then the transaction that happened on the 12th of 01, 2019, it says sold goods for cash. So this means that we, at this stage, bank account again is affected. However, it's not just only bank account, but also sales, and sales affect what? Our equity. So therefore, bank and sales are affected because we sold on cash. So since we're saying that bank is affected and money is coming in, so we're going to debit it to indicate that money came in, and we're gonna say plus 6,000 that we received, plus 6,000 on our sales, indicating that it's increasing. And therefore, we then have a balanced equation. Assets 6,000, liabilities and owner's equity positive 6,000. So that's how we solve for a transaction that occurred on the 12th. So any other questions? Any questions? Any question? Any question, guys? Okay, if there are no questions, someone is asking if there is activities in the textbook. So normally on this question, there are no activities in the textbook, if I remember correctly, but I think there might be some few things. Yes, there are actually activities in the textbook. However, they require you to adjust financial statement. So they are sort of like a follow up in terms of preparation of financial statement. So please take a look at the previous slides that we actually did, as well as the notes on the textbook that we actually managed to highlight during the lessons. So those do cover such, this cover this topic in terms of the double entry system. So it is there on the book under the double entry system, where we started introducing recording information under recording financial transaction in the books of a media company. So there is that. Um Yes, it is a bit hectic, but with practice, I believe you will be able to achieve better results. And also, do not be afraid to consult if you have got any issues. So this is the last section on this particular on this mock test. So what I'm going to require from you guys is that try to complete this again until you manage to score it right without looking at the memorandum. So I'm going to then take a look if there is anything else here. So everything else here, we have already managed to cover most of this during our class time. So I want you guys to attempt this. I'm gonna give you Monday and Tuesday. If you have got any question, please consult with me Monday and Tuesday before you write your assessment. And also, I will make myself available on Sunday. So that which means that over Sunday in the afternoon, you will be, if you're practicing and you come across a certain task that is difficult, please consult. So, any questions that you guys have? Because I see that someone is asking what question are in the supplementary. Similar question. So, what I did is on the main exam, on the main assessment that you're going to write, you will be assessed um, on the same stuff, but this time around, we'll be asking you which account to be debited, which account should we credit, what is the effect, and then on the supplementary, the same topic still applies. However, you will be asked about the same thing just in a different way, because maybe you might have not understood the questioning of the previous assessment, but you might have understood it in a different assessment method. For example, I might ask you to say, okay, on this one, just tell me which account to be debited, which account to be credited. And then on the next one, I might ask you, tell me which what is the accounting effects. which account is increasing, which account is decreasing. So which means that you just tell me the account and then tell me if it's increasing, tell me the account and tell me if it's decreasing. And then on the income statement part, I did mention during class that you're not going to see the income statement on the supplementary. So this means that the income statement is only going to be assessed on the F1 assessment, which is the main assessment. And then the terminologies, you're going to come across them in both the assessment, your fractions, your other lessons that we covered, your conversion of decimals, your place values, they will all be assessed in all these assessments. So everything that we covered in chapter 1 to chapter 2, you are going to be assessed in most of those things. So please make sure that you do practice those a lot. And therefore, if you come across any challenges, then I will be able to help you. Any question before we adjourn today's class? Because I think I need to give you guys time to prepare for the assessment. Any questions? If no questions, can I have thumbs up? Okay, thank you very much for showing up. So this then brings our lesson into to the end. So this means that I'm giving you guys to complete the rest of the questions. For those that wrote the assessment, I am going to send you your feedback later on today. So just give me a few hours just to quickly solve some issue from the course that I was receiving, and then I will share with you guys your feedback on the assessment and which areas to improve based on how you wrote the assessment. So for those that did not wrote, I want you guys to attempt it without looking at the memorandum. See if you can score as much marks as possible and then look at the memorandum and see which areas you are still struggling with. And then if you need assistance, you can then be able to email me and then request assistance on whichever topic that you need from, and then I'll be able to assist you. So in absence of questions, this then brings our class to an end for today. You'll enjoy the rest of your weekend and all the best in your assessment next week. Please practice a lot because this is a
Thank you,
practice
sir.
module.